Thank you. This morning's topic, spirituality versus religion, has been debated and analyzed for many years now. So I thought I would explore it a bit. However, since I am not a scholar, I can only use my layman's lens to look into this topic. Human species have existed and had a way of life on Earth long before religions were ever created. So, how have we survived for millions of years? Was there a set of moral compass we followed? In the book, Just Babies, The Origin of Good and Evil, Yale psychologist Paul Bloom argued that morality is not just something that people learned. It's something we're all born with. At birth, babies are endowed with compassion and empathy with the beginning of a sense of fairness. It is from these beginnings, he wrote, that adults develop their sense of right and wrong and their desire to do good, and at times their capacity to do terrible things. Bloom continues to write, the earliest signs are glimmerings of empathy and compassion, pain and the pain of others, which you can see pretty soon after birth. Once they are capable of coordinating a movement, babies will often try to soothe others who are suffering by patting or stroking. Young children share a list of moral principles, including an understanding of helping is morally good, and harming, hindering, and otherwise thwarting the goals of another person is morally bad. A rudimentary sense of justice and understanding that good guys should be rewarded and bad guys should be punished. An initial sense of fairness, in particular, that there should be an equal division of resources. Alongside with these principles are moral emotions such as empathy. So if we're born with a set of moral principles, all the environment, including our parents, teachers, and other adults need to do is to continue to cultivate them in their children. Why would we need religion? In the meantime, along the way, some great ancient philosophers offer their teachings to help us further develop into ethical human beings. The three great Greek philosophers, including Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates, have a hard time saying the name, taught us to continue to examine our lives and to use reasoning and critical thinking to pursue our intellectual and moral growth. Confucius taught us respect, humanness, integrity, and righteousness. Lao Tzu taught the law of nature, and Buddha taught us wisdom, generosity, and patience. All of them taught us compassion, kindness, empathy, peace, harmony, ethics, morality, and happiness. Influenced by these philosophies, many religions were invented to harness these moral principles, explain our feelings and experience, and offer solutions to our problems. I had to assume that they intended to continue to help human beings live a more moral and ethical life. In ancient times, monastics in the West and the East drop out of the world and practice total devotion to the divine. They follow a strict rule of prayers and chants. This may seem rote and rigid. By doing it thousands of times, something happened to their mind, body, and emotions. They became one with the Spirit by totally embodying the love and the connection to the divine. At least that's what the practice calls for. The Sufi dervishes dancers, by whirling around and around, often reach ecstasy. There is a deep connection between the men and the spirit they're dancing to express. The total devotion is what religious practice in ancient times was all about. This practice requires total trust and obedience in the authoritative teaching and committing to chastity, poverty, and prayer, even without hearing a response from God. The monastic can do that because they don't have to worry about the price of the eggs. Or like the old Chinese saying, ordinary men often had to bend down for a mere bushel of rice. And they don't really have time, cannot afford to commune with the Spirit. In ancient times, churches and temples served as a center of ordinary people's life by offering guidance on communal connections that the monastic often have experienced. They serve as pillars that remind people what's important, that is devotion on moral ground, to support their material lives. But this gathering and our submission to the divine must always be given freely. It cannot be forced. Otherwise, our practices are meaningless, even dangerously oppressive. Remember, in Savita Tayaji's poem, she wrote, "Spirituality is the soul, religion is the body. Each of us embodies our soul in our own ways as our own unique religion." 2020 Gallup poll showed that Americans' membership in major houses of worship continue to decline, dropping below 50% for the first time in the Gallup's 8-decade trend. In 2020, only 47% of Americans said they belong to a church, synagogue, or mosque, dropping down from 70% in 1999. It's a hell of a drop. What caused this decline? There are many reasons why people leave religion. According to Pew Research, most people have left the place of worship because they can no longer find themselves there. Many religious organizations went from being the center of ordinary people's lives to become the rule bearer and the moral authority. This religious doctrines was used to practice intolerance. Many people have been spoon-fed their religion since their childhood, without being given a chance to make their own decisions. Truth-seeking comes from ourselves, not blindly following others. Unfortunately, we humans have put some of the great teachers on the pedestal and surrendered our innate power to reason and inquiry for better understanding. Buddha said, "Follow my teaching, but not me." Some teachers have also gotten too comfortable sitting on their throne. This was when religion becomes shackles and tools of control. Many of us have suffered from religious wounding. How did religion go off course so far from the original teaching? Here are my theories. I'm sure you have yours. Religious organizations were built by men. Cultures existed before religions. For as long as human has history, our cultures have been dominated by men who established hierarchy of power. All the prophets, including Jesus, were change agents who were considered troublemakers. The teachings of love, compassion, and empathy were tools that would make an organization and society more egalitarian, but run contrary to the hierarchy that traditional cultures want to maintain. So they invented a punitive God to keep people in line. People follow the rules for fear of being punished by God. The decline of many religious institutions is attributed to their stopping to learn something new and locking themselves in their truth as if they are the only truth. When they practice this rigidity on each other, they have put themselves in prison. Those who are lucky enough to become aware and choose to leave or break out of this prison will get a chance to heal their wounds and find their way back to their wholeness again. If religion is our body, according to Tayaji, we will have to rebuild our own body. I might have told you this story, but I will repeat it. When I was a teenager growing up in Taiwan, there was a period my mother would take me to a different place of worship every Sunday. This week, Baptist, next week, Catholic, following week, Taoist temple, and so on. Finally, I asked her, "What are we doing?" My mother said, "Honey, we're buying insurance. We cannot afford offend anybody's God." My mother was the most equal opportunity believer. This was how I was raised, to respect and learn from what is good in every religion. As an ordained interfaith chaplain, I have studied world religions extensively and concluded that all original teachings are about love, compassion, kindness, and justice, but we don't always practice them. Having a religion has become a badge or a privilege like membership. We divide the world into two camps, those who are with us and those not with us. We use our membership to judge, discriminate, and cast aside others. We forgot the original teachings. Maybe it is our cultures that had such a powerful hold over us. In the little book of atheist spirituality, this is really cool, this book. I found it like some old book, used book pile. French contemporary philosopher André Comte Sponville quoted Kant, another great ancient philosopher. If a person refrains from murdering the neighbor only out of fear of divine retribution, his behavior is dictated not by moral values, but by caution, fear of the holy policeman, egoism. And if a person does good only with an eye to salvation, she is not doing good, since her behavior is dictated by self-interest rather than by duty or by love, and will thus not be saved. A good deed is not good because God commanded me to do it. On the contrary, it is because an action is good that perhaps and believe God has commanded it. Rather than religion being the basis of morals, morals are now the basis for religion. Comte Sponville also repeated a Jewish joke. Two rabbis and close friends are having dinner together. All night long, they discussed the existence of God and eventually concluded that God doesn't exist. In the morning, one rabbi looks everywhere in the house for his friend and finds him in the garden, absorbed in his ritual morning prayers. Surprised, he said, "Hey, we talked half the night and decided God didn't exist. Here you are saying your ritual morning prayers." The other rabbi replies, "What does God have anything to do with it?" The lesson here is fidelity is independent of religion. In the meantime, 70% of Americans said they're spiritual. 22% say they are spiritual but not religious. Many of them are younger and more progressive. This means most of us didn't abandon our spirit, but we no longer follow the traditional way of embodying this spirit. So now we need to know what it means to be spiritual but not religious. To me, spirit is an energy, like a river, that flows through us and connects us to the universe. It's much bigger than the individual being. 1 + 1 equals more than 2, like a chemical reaction. We are parts of this whole called the divine or God or greater power. It is in this connection that let us know that we are not alone. This power is inside of ourselves, and it is not an object or separate entity. To become our whole self is to honor the spirit that nourishes us from within. What is your definition of spirituality? I'm sure if I ask this question, 100 people will give you 100 answers. So, Pew Research showed that 72% of the spiritual but not religious folks said being connected to one's true self and cosmos is essential to being spiritual. Many want to find a higher power within themselves, and at the same time, they want to find connections to others and the humanity. They want to be kind, respectful, and mindful, and finding inner peace, purpose, meaning, and a sense of direction. We are back to what we already knew and have learned millions of years ago as our innate moral compass. These moral principles have not changed. Getting beyond the debate of spirituality or is this religion, if we want to live up to our wholeness, we need to remind ourselves to come home to this set of moral compass we already have. Reasoning, interconnection, compassion and love, empathy, peace and harmony, respect for human dignity, human rights, justice, sense of community, and social responsibilities. Our Unitarian Universalist 8 principles follow these compasses. The challenge is to remind us to practice them in our daily lives. One way is to practice being mindful. It means quiet down our busy mind and pay attention to our intention. Ask ourselves a few simple questions. Am I following these moral principles right now? If I don't, can I forgive myself for getting off track? Question 3, what is the smallest action step I can take now to get me back on track? Remember, having a religion is not wrong as long as it is yours. Namaste, shalom, amen, and blessed be.